Well, this is our first episode of the 2022, and apologies to all of you that we did not release an episode last week, but I am sure you won't be disappointed because we have a very special guest in Prashant Singh today, who is the owner of Thane City FC, and he does multiple other things as well. But today we'll be focusing only about Thane City FC and what he's been doing and what he intends to do with the club and academy over there. Well, we've been wanting to meet up and catch up off the record as well, but here we are. I got him on the show, and well, let's see how enjoy the conversation. Prashant, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Siju. And like rightly said, our catching up is definitely pending since a long time. Once this third wave settles down, we definitely have to catch up.
That'll all be mostly what we will be speaking off the record, so it anyway can't be captured online. So here we go. And firstly, Prashant, I think, from the time that I've been wanting to get you on the show, and till today, like we finally have you. There's been so much developments, right, personally for you, and a lot of things for beneficial that happened for Mumbai football at large as well. Firstly, let's start with that Thane City FC. Prashant, why don't you take me over? How did this whole thing start? And yeah, from the scratch, I would like you to take us on a journey of Thane City FC.
Yeah. So basically, what had happened is I was working in Delhi, then I moved to Bhubaneswar, and when I came back to Thane in January 2020, before that, I had already researched on a few things and how the club culture is working in India. So one thing for sure was that there cannot be a one name pan India. You cannot carry just one brand across India. A successful club which is very much connected to the community has to be very hyper local. So that was the plan in starting Thane City FC. We wanted a name, firstly, that resonates with a location, with a community, and which is hyper local. So you won't see Thane City FC in Delhi, Bangalore, Calcutta, and Pan India. So Thane City is basically in and around Thane itself. So that was the basic idea in which, for a club to really be connected to the roots and to the community, it has to be very hyper local, and we cannot have a brand that goes pan India. So yes, that's how the whole ideation process started. And then luckily I had good team members which bought into this idea, and together we thought, and we are still working on making this the 21st century Mohan Bagan, in which the club is very much connected to the roots.
Well, that said, you spoke about your team members. Now, coming to that, you have definitely picked some of the best from the local scene as well, right? And I think that's the way to go about to give chance and opportunity for not just players on the field, but also players that you gather off the field for a great team to function. Tell us something more about your management, including your coaching staff. And you recently had a TD being appointed, a known face in Mumbai football for sure. But for a larger audience, if you can tell us some more bits about your coaching staff and the management.
Yeah. So as of now, in the management, it's like a small startup. We are a team of 12, in which, of course, coaches comprise. I mean, the technical team is of 10, and there are two people who are working on admin. That is myself and Aniket Monde. So what had happened is, initially, before hiring Aggie, I was the one acting technical director as well. So it was very difficult to do both the administrative part, business development part, as well as monitor everything that's going on the field. So that's when we thought we do need someone who is dedicated and only specific for all the technical aspects, because no matter how much of a brand you build online, ultimately what matters is, what do you deliver on the ground. So that's when we thought, like, we'll hire someone that who's dedicated in making sure that the quality control is in check, the coaches are up to date, and the children get the best training possible in and around Thane. So Aggie and me, we had already worked. We started working together in 2014 or 15, I assume, and it's been like a 6 7 year old relation that we already had. Plus, he gets with him a lot of expertise. He himself is an A licensed coach, Plus, also he has a decade long experience with the American School of Bombay. So he is the right kind of guy that not only fits in our technical requirements, but in terms of value systems, he shares the similar values that we have in our company. Like when we talk about the holistic growth, it's not just football, 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 but balancing your academics, balancing the other social skills, the soft skills that we get apart from just the technical competence that a child gets. So, in terms of technicality and in terms of value, we got Aggie on board. Apart from that, we recently even teamed up and partnered with Dale D'Souza. So, Dale D'Souza is working as a consultant and with our team growing. And one thing we want to be certain about right from the start is that because right now it's a small firm, like we are just 10, 12 people, but right from the word go we want to make sure that the people that we bring in and the culture that we cultivate and the values that we have, they have to be in place from day one. So Dale would be helping us, so we are not calling him HR, we are calling him head of people and culture. So he would be basically looking into it's a long term shot. Of course, it's not like a few months. Probably we've given him a year's time in which he would uh, see the value system and make sure everybody aligns with the same value system, be it the coaches, the technical director, the owners, or even the kid boy. Everybody has to align to a certain value system. And apart from that, we do have Nathan sir, who's been with me since the start. He's the head of player development. He himself is a FIFA grassroots certified coach. So he brings in a lot of experience with him. He's an ex Navy player. Again, he is someone who really, puts in the value system on the ground as well. So whenever we are hiring anyone, they also go through Nathan sir. So he's the one who is also like interviewing them.
Right. I mean, you've got not only people who know the scene at the domestic, and when I say very to level of Thane or Mumbai, they are also experts at the sport and at the game, the technical aspect of it as well. My next question to you is, how has the response been from the people from Thane? And when you started this, you mentioned, yes, you wanted to be a community side club, but also the fact that probably did you speak to people around there when at least the football loving folks, and did you find out how the response was before you could start, and how has it been now?
To be honest, of course, we did not speak to people beforehand, but we already had a community where we were training around 400 children, and we were regularly in contact with 400 families. So with that being said, of course, it was a proactive step and it is going to take a long time. What we did was we started a community leaders program in which we shortlisted 12 leaders from Thane, and four of them at least are very active and they contribute on a weekly basis. In fact, some of the brighter ideas, some of the ideas which you see on the social media handles as well, they've come from the community leaders. So of course we are not there yet, we are still a long way from really impacting the community at the grassroots level. But what we are doing is, of course, we are taking one step at a time. So for now it will be increasing the number of children that are there in the soccer school, and once this whole pandemic situation settles down, we also plan to get into the community. In the sense, we would be happy to adopt one or two municipal schools, and in which we teach them some life skills and using football as a tool. So of course there are a few projects in the pipeline which would help us create a better bond with the community. And are we there yet? The answer is no. It's going to take a few more years.
Yeah, and I think nobody's gonna come at you to ask what have you been doing, because you just started, and I'm sure, less like you mentioned, the journey is gonna be long, and probably down couple of down years. We sit down again for a show. I'm sure most of these things, God willingly, it will happen, and your projects will kick off well. Let me ask you about the women's football scene, right? we are yet to be there at the level of how, in terms of at least structure and more game time, at least comparatively to what the men are playing for our women. But considering this month is special, we'll be hosting the AFC Asian Cup for the women, and I've also read, and we've also spoken otherwise, you've been very actively speaking about the whole structure, the development of the women's football, not just on the field but off the field. I think the things that kept you busy during webinars was that you spoke about relevant topics revolving women's football during the last, I think, the lockdown period. So, how important it is for Thane City FC, the women's football development, and if you can share what have you been doing so far?
Yep. Women's football is pivotal, of course, in our mission and vision. It's also because it has a lot of social element to it. With that being said, we don't want to look at women's football as if it's just one of the tick box. I mean, it's one of the check boxes. We just say, okay, we are doing it for the sake of it. We actually believe that in terms of competence and in terms of merit as well, women's football is gonna get us more recognition in on an international platform compared to men's. So it's not just that we are doing it as charity. We strongly believe that in terms of competence as well, women footballers have a better chance of excelling than their male counterparts. Apart from that, as of now, as even you might be knowing, the situation in Mumbai football around women is very volatile because there are not many players, and all the tournaments that are happening only for the open age. So what is happening is, there is this one generation of players that keep switching clubs, and if you see, this group going and playing for that club, next season they are in some other club, and then they are in some other club. That's why there is no consistency, and there is no club that is really up there for a while, like for consecutive 2 3 years. And we also see an influx of a lot of players from other states, uh, which has its own pros and cons. I'm not for it or against it. But what is happening as of now in Mumbai football, especially around women, is that I think we need more tournaments for the younger age groups. We need more under 18 tournaments in which, of course, the generation that is playing and excelling right now, nothing against them, even they have been an idol, and they have been the one who played a pivotal role in at least popularizing the sport in Mumbai. But then we also have to think about the next generation, because if you only keep having open age tournaments, then it is going to be only these players coming and participating and excelling. So we won't be giving chance to younger girls. So especially IWL is also uh, thinking of having its own under 18 as well as an under 15 league. And once that happens, it opens door for all the other small academies who can then really start, nurturing the talented girls from a younger age, from the age of 13, 14, and not directly just calling one girl and she gets her friends, and then we have a star-studded team this year, and next year again we rely on them. So I think it is Mumbai football. It is going to take some time, and the only thing that can really help Mumbai football as of now is to have more underage tournament for girls, and that is something that Thane City FC would really be happy to participate in. In fact, initially when we started off 2 years ago, we were aiming the IWL, but once we came to know the development around the IWL for younger age groups, now that is something we aspire more than the senior women's team.
Yeah, talking about the senior team, Thane City yet don't have a senior team in my understanding and my knowledge that much I know in any of the categories, but it's focusing completely on, as of now, grassroots and building towards making that senior team from down to uphill. Tell us something more about that angle and that kind of sustaining the club as well, because it's also a scouting pool for other teams, right? If somebody goes on, if somebody's joined you at the age of 10 or 12, and there is some other category of say under 15, or when the kid grows. So you're also giving hopes to other clubs in terms of maybe the local clubs around, to also have an eye on this particular kid. So tell us and help us understand, how does this model work, and what are your plans, and how long do you see yourself involved and invested in the grassroots side?
Yeah, so like you rightly mentioned, we do not have a senior team across any of the genders. Uh, that being said, we have a goal of having a senior team probably in the year of 2025. Until then, we'll be only focusing on the grassroots, I mean, on children's football and on youth football. As of now, we have teams which are under 15 as well as under 18. Um, but then we are going to focus mainly on the under 15 children and watch them. We were going to train them and watch them grow, and probably they will be the first batch that would represent Thane City FC senior team. Also, because running a senior team, it's very taxing in terms of resources, in terms of your time and efforts, and you don't have. I mean, you don't know whether that same player is going to be with you the next year. And of course, in senior team, the players expect compensation. I mean, of course, they need to be compensated. It's just that we are not in a position financially to take that step yet. We would instead invest the same amount of funds, resources, and energy in youth, the under 13s and the under 15s, and have them with us for like 2 3 years. And in the meanwhile, if they get a team that is playing at a higher division than us, then we'll be more than happy to let them go. But then, yes, of course, keeping in mind the financial sustainability aspect, and also having a bottom up approach, I think focusing on youth for the next 3 years for both men and women, it makes absolute sense.
Yeah, now you mentioned about the financial aspect of it, right? I think most of the clubs or academies fall out or die down eventually is because that they don't get financially right with things. So, and knowing the nature of Indian football, we've seen the reasons also. We know the reasons why they can't sustain. So, if you can probably help the younger teams, or if there are clubs and academies and people from there tuning into this show, how do you suggest them, or what's the viable option, and what are you doing at Stania City FC to sustain it financially?
Yeah, I mean, number one step should be get your revenue model in place. I mean, think of making money first. It might sound very straightforward and upfront, but then that's what it is. Get your revenue system in place so that you can be in the development, race for a longer run. Because, like you mentioned, there have been so many clubs who come with a lot of passion, and they try to do things, and of course, they make an impact. But after 2 3 years, they think, okay, this is a lot of money going in from my pocket, or they only rely on sponsors. And if the sponsor is having a bad day or a bad year, or even if they themselves come into a position in which they have a lot of financial obligations other than football, then of course the football takes a back seat. So number one thing would be at least try to figure, if not immediately, within a year or within 2 years, how are you going to make money, and then you can focus more on the development aspect. So for us, as of now, we have 800 children. So for us, we are certain that we won't be having a senior team until we reach at least 1200 children who are pay and play. And the money coming in from the pay and play model, the soccer school model, that would be channelized towards our youth teams and ultimately our senior team. So even if we don't have a sponsor, we will make sure that we have a base that is created, and that is a financially sustainable ecosystem that we create within our club. Because we you don't want to be in a position where the owners are putting in money every year from their own pocket. I mean, I've heard stories. Of course, there are a lot of passionate people, a lot of selfless people who come in football. I was working in Delhi, where I came to know that there was someone who sold his house. I mean, he had a few of them, but he sold one of his house to run the club for another 3 4 years. So that's a privilege not everybody has. Not everybody, every one of us have. We don't have like multiple properties or something. So uh, a better thing to figure out would be, yes, initially you can ask for funding, you can ask your friends and family for some financial help, but make sure a major part of that money and the funding that you get is going into create something that in turns give you revenue. That is something that we really have to focus on. And passion and all of course is there, but then it's just that if you have your own revenue system, you would be able to create a bigger impact and for a longer time.
Yeah, some cue points there from Mr. Prashant to all those aspiring, wanting to be club owners or academy owners, or I think in the ones who are already there, even for them, it's a good learning and some good points there. Prashant, I'm coming now to the challenges aspect, right? I think with everything that we start, something new, there definitely challenges coming on the way, and knowing that you were putting your foot inside Indian football, like, which is filled only with challenges. Sometimes I feel with some don't have solution to come out or not to clear those challenges. But if you can share your journey so far, how has it been, and what were those? Have there been any crucial points saying that probably you shouldn't have started this, or something like that?
So I was in the US from 2007 to 2009, and the second half of 2009 I came back, and I was pursuing my aviation. And when I came back, of course, there was a tedious process of converting your American license to Indian. So that took like, a year. In the meanwhile, I was also, training some children within my society itself. And that's how the journey initially started. And then, of course, after the Kingfisher Airlines shut, it was projected that there won't be any jobs for the next 2 3 years because it's a very niche market, aviation. So that's when I decided, okay, I have already like 10 15 children. Why don't I make a team out of them? And then 10 15 turned into 20 30 40 50. And the next thing is that there was a small academy setup that was coming up. And that's when we started charging minimal fees as well. Like we were charging 400 rupees a month for twice a week training because we were doing it on a public ground. So that's how it started. It was basically just to cover costs of the equipment and basic travel allowance for coaches. So that's how it started. And then in 2011 I got my coaching license, and one thing led to the other. And I think the major um, so initially there were a lot of challenges in terms of infrastructure, accessibility to infrastructure, because before the turf culture coming up, 2014 is when there was a boom in the turf culture. But before 2014, to even the accessibility to public grounds was a major issue because it was dominated by cricket. And then there were some grounds which were not well maintained. And of course, in the evenings, people used to go drink and throw their bottles there. So it was not a very safe and a positive environment to train children, because even children would come and see what's around. Parents would not send them. So I think 2014 was a pivotal year, and that's when that's where we see so many academies. If you have a graph of number of academies and the number of turfs, they have grown together, and it's only because the accessibility of infrastructure. So in 2014 is when we thought like now there are going to be more turfs in and around Thane. So and now we can actually rent that infrastructure for an hour, and it will be all ours under our control. So that's when we started something called as soccer cubs. And the whole point was we start training in these turfs. So at that time there were a lot of people who were like, nahi nahi, turf mein itna chota, isme nahi khela jata hai football. You cannot play football in a 5v5 5-a-side turf, in a 7-a-side turf. So initially there were some challenges in convincing parents, in convincing some players, in convincing some fellow coaches as well, like this is the future and this is something that does impact. And because that time there was not much awareness about small sided games, about futsal, and how they actually complement football as well. So initially, those were the challenges, but then the whole turf boom was something that we see is one of the reasons why there are so many academies in Mumbai, and which is really great. So one, and apart from that, one of the biggest challenges that even I have faced, and I'm sure every coaches face, is one is the lack of awareness amongst parents. Like nowadays there is it's getting better, but parents should be sending children to play a team sport, any sport for that matter, for some of the life skills that the children learn. It's not only to make your child a football player. There are some life skills like teamwork, like confidence. So even if the girl or the boy is not playing football at the age of 25, but then there are some social skills like confidence, dealing with failure, or even tolerance for that matter. That is something they learn from an environment, from a sporting environment, a team sport environment, not from the classroom. So these are some of the skills that parents should be aware of. These are some of the soft skills that parents should be aware of, that their child gets while they are a part of the team sport. And apart from that, I think the biggest challenge even now is that there needs to be a sense of unity amongst all the coaches and all the academies, because we should understand that we are not competing with each other. Because for Thane City FC, the local clubs, the local academies are not the competition. We have to see, look at the bigger picture, in which what is competition for football as a whole. So we are talking about these skating classes, these music classes, and all these other co-curriculars. They are the actual competition. So like for I keep talking to the other academy owners whenever I meet them. Like in Thane, there are only 2,500 children approximately who are training with academies. So the number one goal should be, how do we get that number from 2,500 to 10,000 to 15,000 to 20,000? That should be the goal. And then we can, fight for our market share. But with this number being 2,500, we have to make sure that, what is the turnover rate, like are there children dropping out of football, are there children coming in football? So I think a sense of unity amongst all coaches and all academies, that has to develop, and we have to look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is more and more children playing football in the first place, rather than how many children are coming to my academy. So if the market size grows, everyone's academy grows.
Yeah, and I think that's the attitude I think most of us in Indian football lack of growing together, of having, each other's back in some way or the other. Yes, there's competition, but at the same time, when somebody is fixed their eyes on a particular goal, I think that's what also gives reaps benefits, is to walk together and make sure that things are going in the right way. Prashant, thank you so much for all those insights. But I think all of these are enough to impress me, or people who've been in the industry to. Kickstarter just makes me happy being from Bombay and also knowing Thane, the different district. But I think mostly one aspect that definitely excites all of them, and then eye catchy one, and something that actually surprised all of us, is your partnership with Southampton. And I think that's something really is impressive. It's not a club probably with many trophies to boast or is popular among the Indian crowd in terms of how the top six clubs are, but they are rightly so popular among the academy, the players that they've produced. And tell us more about this partnership and what do you intend to have going ahead, and how does it look beneficial for Thane?
Yep. So this, I mean, the talks started back in 2020 within our team, that we were looking for a tie-up with a club that would help us in terms of technical expertise, and who would hold our hands and take us forward. So we were open initially to clubs not only in the English Premier League, not only in Europe, but we were also looking at clubs in Asia, because that's something, everybody wants to jump the gun and directly go to the to Europe or to the North America. So what we were thinking of, like, We were also exploring some clubs in Iran. There is one club in the Philippines, the City FC. So we were also trying to have a discussion with these clubs, and then what we figured out is not all the clubs also match your value system, because ultimately a partnership should, if it has to succeed in a long term, it has to be built around the same value system, because it cannot be transactional. Because if you look at Thane City FC, it anyway cannot be transactional, because we don't have crores of rupees that the ISL clubs are paying for the partnership. Neither do we have, millions of followers or even lakhs of followers. We are just sitting at 2,500 followers. So that's nothing. So of course, in order to get the partnership, we wanted to make sure that we tie up with a club that matches the same value system, that has a similar mindset that we have, of focusing mainly on youth. So that's when I was discussing with a friend of mine in the UK, Amit Umat. So I was telling him, so we were in talks with one of the Portuguese club as well, but then the language was a problem, and they were looking to go very aggressive in India, in which they had plans like, okay, first year we see how this goes, second year we want to go in 2 cities, third year we want to go in 10 cities, and that is something we were not ready for, because that would have made sense if it would have been a transactional, purely commercial partnership. So that's when Amit told me, like, he has someone in mind, and he was working closely with the Southampton guys, and he put forward this proposal, like, there is this club in India, upcoming club, and they are only going to be focusing on youth for the next 3-4 years, and then build on to have a senior team. And of course, Southampton also, they, we were just their 11th partner at that time, and we were only the second in Asia. So for a brand like Southampton, they can easily get 100 partners within a year, because Southampton is a global brand and everyone is aware of. But then even Southampton, they really pick and choose who they partner with. There were a round of interviews with me. They obviously studied my background, where I come from, all the work that I have done, the goals and the mission and the vision that Thane City FC has. So of course we were able to sell our dream, because we had nothing else to offer. We had no money, we had no fan following. We just had our dream, and they bought into it. And I think for a club like Southampton, I think even this would fit in, even their value system, in help a small club, and at from the early stages, and watch them turn into an ISL or an I League team. So that's how it all started. So of course we were super excited working with Southampton, and the talks went on for almost a year, if not more. And now we've finally signed a 3 plus 3 year deal, in which for the first 3 years we'll be only establishing a working relation, and we will be focusing mainly on the residential academy setup. They will be helping us with the curriculum and how do we go with that. Apart from that, they will be also regularly interacting with our coaches. There will be a monthly webinar with our coaches to upgrade and update our coaches as well. So yeah, initially the first 3 years, I'm being honest that there is not a lot that we are going to do, but then yes, of course, we are going to build a healthy working relation with the Southampton guys, and coach education, residential academy, curriculum, as well as some help with the soccer schools. So these are the three things for the first 3 years that we will be exploring with Southampton.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important three aspects that you mentioned to build on and then see how that reaps benefits, right? I think most importantly is to get few things right at the start, at the ground level. And I think that's absolutely bang on that you guys have got club like Southampton that boasts of such a history and also known for his academy and, of the grassroots level. And I think for a team like yours that's invested heavily in grassroots, they couldn't have been a better match than this. Congratulations on that aspect. My final question to you is, what does the future look like for Thane City as a club? I know none of us are certain about what the future holds with all situation that we are in, but what have you planned for Thane and in the aspects of its growth? And apart from the fact that, you all want to field a second division team in the I League by 2025-26, and then probably an IWL team. But apart from that, what can we expect from Thane City FC?
Yeah, in terms of the immediate milestones and the immediate goals, we are looking at starting our residential academy in the next season, which is the 22-23. So that's in the pipeline. We are already in talks with the guys who are handling our infrastructure, and probably by mid of Feb, we'll be able to announce more information on the residential setup. Apart from that, we have a plan to increase the number of children participating in our soccer schools. So from 800, we are aiming to take it to 1,000 by the end of this year. And of course, we have our performance batches in place. So, also having via more coach education, even improving the quality of our coaches and upgrading them to handle youth competitive teams. So, our under 13 and under 15s mainly. So, apart from the residential setup, we also have performance teams within our centers and within the soccer school. So, if you ask me, the next 2 years it's only going to be focus on the under 13 and under 15 teams and increase the number of children in our soccer school as well as the residential program because they are the cash cows. That's where the revenue comes in, and so that we invest in our under 13 and under 15 teams, which will be playing the Youth I League. Probably we might not play the under 13 Youth I League. It's because there are a lot of differences when we think about 12-year-olds playing on a full size ground with a full size goalpost, but under 15 for sure. And after a year or two, once this batch graduates, then they also play the under 18. So the youth leagues is something that we are going to focus on for the next 3 years. And that's what even we have promised Southampton. And that's where we will be making the most of their expertise in terms of youth development.
Great. That was some great insights into Thane City FC. And Prashant, thank you so much for all those points that you shared. And I don't want to limit yourself, to box you into saying you are just the owner of Thane City FC. Let me tell our audience and listeners that Prashant is also part of the AIFF grassroots panel. He's also one of the instructors. So if any of you've done your coaching badges at the grassroots level, you must have definitely seen Prashant around being the instructor there. But I think I'll have you again on the show, probably just talking about a coach education aspect. So this was just exclusively about what are the happenings at Thane City FC. And Prashant, once again, thank you so much for taking time talking to me and coming onto the show.
Thank you so much, Siju, and the pleasure was all mine.
Great. Well, thank you once again to all our listeners who've tuned in. Thank you so much for being patient that we could not release an episode in the last week. And this is our first episode of the new year, but many more coming up in the coming weeks and the months. So stay tuned, do follow and subscribe to the Totally Indian Football Show. I'm your host, Siju, and I have a great year ahead.